Great. All right, welcome everybody to the closing sessions for the 2021 MIDD Plus Scientific Conference. It's my pleasure to present today's speakers, John DeBella, Divisional President, and Jonathan Chauvin, Chief Operating Officer. John, take it away.
Thank you very much, Arlene. And oh boy, what a whirlwind of activity over these productive 2 days. We do hope that you share our enthusiasm for the event and walk away feeling motivated to, expand your use of modeling and simulation approaches at all stages of R&D and regulatory interactions. Jonathan and I, still running on adrenaline for Jonathan, approaching 9 p.m. in France. We'll be closing the door on the lively and stimulating talks and debates which have taken place. And also we'll look ahead a little bit to running it back again in 2022. We kicked off the event yesterday with this slide outlining our own experiences and how far we've really come over the past 20 years. A torrent of ideas and information and visions, that have been shared by speakers across all walks of life, industry, regulatory, academia, and also us, Simulations Plus, as solution providers. And it is going to take some time for us to, really be able to kind of digest and shift through all of the information presented and consolidate our own personal perspectives and answers to the questions of the day, which is, how do I change the entire R&D process to reflect the availability of all these modeling and simulation tools and techniques? I think it's been pretty obvious that from Simulations Plus alone, you really do have opportunities to incorporate machine learning, PBPK, systems pharmacology, toxicology, and pharmacometrics from discovery going all the way through to clinical development and even post-approval. And so what Jonathan and I would like to do here over the course of the next few minutes is, I think, touch on a few things that were our own highlights. And also, while we're doing that, we ask a favor of you, and that is make use of the Q&A and chat panels in the Excel events platform, and provide some feedback on programming ideas for the MIDD Plus 2022 event. And then as we get to that topic in this presentation, we'll try and pull from that and at least have some paths forward that we can start thinking about as we prepare for next year's event. As you can see here on this slide, Jonathan and I have outlined a few talking points, a few takeaways that we realized from the past 2 days. And what I'd like to do first is invite Jonathan to start, and we're going to just have an interactive discussion between the two of us, which we will allow you to listen into as we talk through some of, again, our own personal highlights from the conference. Jonathan, if I may invite you to start with that first bullet that you have there about model-informed drug development in its entirety, and maybe provide a few comments there.
Thanks a lot, John. So, as you mentioned, it's quite an amazing conference that was performed. The first highlight that I have is to be able to see the model-informed drug development in this conference in its overall. I thought it was really amazing to see all the parts in the drug development. From each background, I would say that each modeling discipline has its unique contribution to the knowledge creation, but to be able to put all that knowledge at the several phases is really amazing. So I think I've saw talks from discovery, which is not especially my area, but was very interesting from how to design new compounds for optimized target activity is really fascinating. From that to post-approval, where everything is already done and we are looking at what's happening with the patient, with all the steps in between, from the preclinical, where the PBPK is having a huge place to see, does it make sense for first in human? How is it helping to make the good decision? To the first in human, to say what is the good dose to go to the first in human. There was one nice talk from that for monoclonal antibody. Also to go from one phase to another one, there was a nice talk on the phase 2 to say, how do I make the trial to go to make the best information that we have for the phase 3, and we are getting closer to the drug delivery with phase 3 to say, okay, how do all this trial information support the dose choice and the labeling at the end, with the post-approval, really what happened with the decision that we make. So my first highlight is really these possibilities through this conference to have a great vision of the overall drug development process, from really early to really late and after the drug development. And I think it's really unique. I've never seen this kind of conference before, and I'm very proud to be part of it, to have really an overview, a lot of details of what's going on in each steps. So that's the first part of really an overview of this MIDD. The second point that is really fascinating to me is that the borders are getting smaller between the several phases, between the several disciplines. And we see that there are more and more interactions between the several phases in the global drug discovery to the drug development, which means that as you mentioned in your previous slides, 20 years ago it was, does it make sense? To now, how do we do that? And we say that even though there are a lot of different disciplines that are going toward the drug development, it's really fascinating to see that these borders are getting away little bit by little bit, and that's really interesting for that. Mm-hmm. So that was my first point.
If I could, for a second, just kind of piggyback on that, I think that's a really good insight. And for me, I spent most of yesterday moderating the preclinical track, and it was really eye-opening to see just in that little window of development time the different approaches that could be taken, whether we're talking fit for purpose going all the way through to fully mechanistic. And selfishly, I think I walked away with an even better kind of appreciation of some of the things that we've certainly given lip service to over the past couple of years, in terms of really integrating, the different areas of machine learning, PBPK, QSP, QST, and pharmacometrics. Your team, Pauline and Geraldine, both gave some really nice presentations, and light bulbs were going off in all directions for me in terms of how could we potentially expand on some of the work they did by, maybe integrating PBPK with that myriad of PD models that are available within the Monolix platform. And so I'm hoping that a lot of the attendees walked away with similar feelings. We know there's quite a few companies that are utilizing one or more of our tools today, and I think us being able to kind of highlight how they can better communicate with each other to make some more informed, to help make or provide information for decision making is something that's really valuable.
I fully agree on that. I mean, that was also one of the main interests of Leaguesoft joining the Simulations Plus family, to be part of this global trends and how to make that possible in a short, mid, long term. But mm-hmm. That's the way we wanted to go, and that's why we joined the Simulations Plus family, to be able to provide that kind of applications to the community, to say that we are not stuck in a specific area like PBPK is not, and that we are just trying to provide the community the most efficient tools to answer the good questions. As we mentioned during this conference, all the questions are a little bit different depending on what is the objective of the study, what are you looking for. That's really an amazing challenge that we have in the near future.
Yeah, agree. I think we're not lacking for solution offerings, and I think that it's going to be on us to try and properly educate all of our users to help them figure out what they should use when they're at a certain stage, when they have certain data available, and so on. But boy, the sky's really the limit here in terms of the integration aspects. I'm kind of curious about the second one that you've got there, the role of education. Can you expand on that a little bit?
What was really fascinating in the couple of sessions that I attended to in the talks was at each time there was a different question to say what is the good dose, what is the good information that I want. And I think that there was a lot of way of the presenters said, okay, that's very important not to provide the results, but to explain what makes sense, how we guide the analysis toward these results, and that the goal is not to have a number of an information. The goal of the drug development is not to say it's 10 milligram or whatever at the end of the day. What is really important is what I've really considered was really important in that sessions to say what makes sense for the decision making, what is the most efficient information for being confident to make that decisions. And we've seen that through the different phases. What is a successful definition of a clinical trial? We had the same with the nice presentation from the different health authorities to say, okay, what makes us confident in terms of how do you present your results? What information do we need to say that a drug is efficient, is toxic, or whatever? And there is a lot of effort that were made by the attendees to say what kind of message do we need to deliver to the agencies, to the physicians, to the drug development in global to be more efficient, to be able to make sure that people are discussing together and more efficient in the global and overall drug development. Mm-hmm. And what we've seen with that, and really proud of what the Simulations Plus is doing through these really different possibilities that are offered through academic license, teaching license, government and non-profit specific discount, and all the references, all the efforts that we do as Simulations Plus to make that accessible for the student, for the research, to make it efficient, and also for the teaching, which is really a key, I believe, to have the feedback of the teachers to help us make a product more efficient, to say, okay, what really matters in terms of how do we design an interface to make it simpler and more understandable for the community, to be more with a good education of what is important. And if the regulatory agencies say, I want this kind of information, this is our role to guide our products to be more efficient in terms of defining this information, and also to educate the people to say, okay, this is what matters, this is what we believe that matters based on the reaction that we have. And that's this global role on what is the role of this software to be more efficient, what is the role of modeling and simulation in the decision making in global. When we've seen this kind of presentation, what is key to me at each time, which was really eye-opening, say, what do we need to share with the community as platforms, but also what is the information that people need to discuss together to say, okay, if a modeler is in a project team, the information is not the result of the model. At the end of the day, nobody cares if it's a clearance, whatever. But how do we communicate with that in what is the good dosing, what are the constraints? How do we make that understandable for non-experts in the model, but to be able to spread this message, to have people really more confident in decision making and being more certain that making bold statements or making decision in rupture to what is currently done in the industry or in their own company makes sense. And that's really through the education that we're going to have a better vision of what makes sense and what is the good result for this kind of problems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's really, really good feedback. And I think that's also a takeaway from my side as well, that we've got a lot of really good training content available on the technical operations of our tools. And there's going to be, I think, additional opportunities to provide further training for those who are attending some of our courses on those ways in which they should be communicating some of the results that are being generated. And that's where, you know, we've got a real benefit as well at Sims Plus, where our consultants have a lot of experience in doing this already across the different divisions, Cognigen and you know, the Simulations Plus group over here, and also at DillySim. And so I think we can, you know, there may be some ways, my wheels are spinning and we're just spitballing now, but there may be real ways in which we leverage some of them to help with some of the software training courses that we've been mostly responsible for in the Lixoft and in Simulations Plus divisions going forward, because that communication aspect is something that is going to be really key for those modelers to become more proficient at in the future. If I just hop over to the first bullet point, because you brought up the presentations on that were delivered by the health authorities globally, I think one of the really cool things that I was struck by, I've heard a lot of speakers from different agencies at different conferences, and realizing just how overwhelmed they are with the volume of work coming in. You know, sometimes you've got presentations, you've got content which is delivered in similar form from one conference to the next. And I was really pleased to see the information rich slides put together with really clear messages and also case studies from, you know, the folks coming in from the preclinical stages into clinical pharmacology, biopharmaceutics, Office of Generic Drugs, and so on. That's not content that you often see delivered at some of these larger shows, and I think you know, it speaks to us being able to keep the topic very focused, the audience very focused on modeling and simulation, which unleashed these regulatory speakers to really deliver information that I know we've been asked a lot about over the past couple of years, a lot of questions on best ways of framing and reporting results to support regulatory interactions. And I think people are going to be able to walk away with some clear guidelines of what they need to do.
Yeah, I fully agree on that. I mean, this session was really interesting for what we mentioned, but also from the regulatory point of view, which is often like considered as a constraint. What do I have to fill for the regulatory agency?
Mm-hmm.
And was really interesting is what is their really needs, what is their understanding of what's going on, not just to be able to have an overall open discussion on what are the issues, what they really need to be confident for their decisions. Mm-hmm. Really not like an authority in a pure sense, but really how do we make sure that everything is done, everything understood to make a good decision at the end of the day. Mm-hmm. All this presentation were really fascinating for that, just to say, okay, what do I need? What is my case study? What is my feedback of what should be done to make sure that we are providing something that we are sure for the patient at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Women in science and leadership kind of goes without saying, I think, a little bit, but I've heard, and this was a session that took place this morning, and I've already gotten feedback from a number of people on how positive and inspiring a lot of those engagements were, the interactions between those folks on the panel and some of the questions that were coming in. And I'm proud to say that I work for an organization that embraces diversity and inclusivity. And, you take a step back and look, we've got, women in real positions of leadership at Simulations Plus, making all sorts of critical decisions on the biggest product lines we have, on the strategic directions our company is going to be taking, the service offerings and so forth. And the results don't lie. I mean, we're seeing explosive growth. We're seeing a happier and more engaged community of employees. And it's something that I know we're just going to continue wrapping our arms around and bear hugging going forward. I don't know if you've got anything to add before we go on to the last points.
Yeah, just to add something, and this session was really amazing because it's really interesting to focus on people, and I think also what is amazing in Simplus is this orientation toward the person who are working for the company, and to have this person sharing their experience was really great for the audience. Just not to say, okay, I work there, this is what I do, but really sharing their life, what is the situation, why they like working in this kind of environments is really a really nice message to share with the community of what is possible. And I'm very proud too, especially at Qst, where we have more than 60% of female employee. So we are really glad to contribute in that.
Yeah, good. Finally, the more we know, the more we understand that there is still a lot to understand. Can you?
Yes,
you twisted my brain into knots.
That's almost a Shakespearean citation. That is not a pure verbatim of Neil, but we were in a sessions to explain what is the impact of pharmacometrics and what's the future of modeling and simulation. I was really interested in his comments that were saying, okay, how are you passionate in your work? And he was saying, yes. And I say, how do you reflect that? And we said that the more he's getting more knowledge of what he's doing, he's really passionate, he understands a lot, he's a very smart guy. And at the end of the day, he just said that the future is bright because I know that there is a lot of things that I do not know. And that was also a lot of the message that we had from different sessions of presentation. We make models, we try to understand something, but we know that we have not understand that and that. That doesn't mean that we are not able to make a decision, but we can live with this uncertainty or just to make some bounds on it. However, we still have to understand what's going on, where does it come from? Is it coming from the patient? Is it something that from a biological thing that we do not understand? I really think that something inspiring in what Neil was saying is that we still have a lot to understand and we still have work to do to make access to, in a simpler way, to people who are coming in this community, and give them the button to learn more, to search more, and give the same button in 20, 30 years to the next community to have a better understanding of this world that is fascinating. So this Shakespearean is from Neil, and with this British accent, much better than mine, it was much more interesting to hear. But I suggest you go to the sessions and you might, I mean, that's not a pure verbatim, but you will hear this amazing accent and it's nice.
It's infectious and people virtually melt when he talks, Jonathan. I'll just end with my last highlight, which is all that glitters is not gold. And what I mean by this is it was really interesting for me to see outside of the machine learning space and what we do here also from a PBPK perspective, the attention and effort that is given at the beginning of projects really just study and analyze the raw data that is available before we dive in and start throwing all these different models against the wall to see what sticks. And again, we've had that experience, and it's something that we've prided ourselves on here in the Sims Plus division from the machine learning perspective, and spending a lot of time carefully curating data and making sure it's all correct before it gets fed into the machine learning monsters. But hearing from individuals like Al and Denise and Julie and others at Cognigen, I didn't quite have the appreciation before this conference of how much effort is spent when you're doing the pharmacometrics work. First, just exploring and analyzing the data. What is the story coming back from that? And how can we use it to then make some better and more efficient decisions about the modeling directions we're going to take? So I found that to be really interesting, and also I think a clear differentiator between Simulations Plus and a lot of other organizations that do similar things. So I think those are some of the highlights, and I'm just keeping an eye on the time. We do need to take a moment and express our gratitude to all those who have been involved in the organization of this event, as they say. And I don't know exactly who they are, but it takes a village to execute an undertaking like this. And while there are too many people to name individually, prominent among them are, for this MIDD Plus 2021 event, the newly formed corporate marketing team under the able leadership of Arlene Padron, who really did a lot of work just continuing to remind people about their responsibilities, bringing it all together, and really executing on this in such a short period of time. We really didn't make a decision to go forward with this event until about 2 or 3 months ago. And for a first run through, it was a huge success. There's also scientists, of course, internal and external, for devoting all the time they did to putting together these really interesting talks and presentations. And also members of the operations teams who, behind the scenes were the ones who helped see this conference through. In addition, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't, of course, fail to thank the over 1,000 people who registered and attended over these past 2 days. You carved out time from your busy schedules and trusted us to deliver a really compelling program. And from the feedback that we received thus far, we're really highly motivated to run this back again, MIDD Plus 2022. So thank you all for those efforts. Speaking of MIDD Plus 2022, in terms of what's to come, what are some areas that we may want to look to expand upon and add into the agendas for next year? A few top of mind thoughts before I invite Jonathan and or Arlene to comment on anything which may have come in through the chat panels. Applications of precision dosing. Jonathan, I know this is something near and dear to the Licksoft heart.
Yeah, I mean, we see that in the trends of the MIDD, there are a lot of things that are developed in terms of model, a lot of information that are accumulated. And when we go to post-approval, this is usually a simple dosing regimen that is proposed, and we are more or less losing what's going on. And with the precision dosing, the idea is to be able to grab back some of this information and to say, can we use that for the patient? So the goal is not really to impact the standard of care, but if we have additional information from the patient, from a measurement, can we do something to improve efficiency, to reduce toxicity, basically to improve the life of the patient?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very good. Machine learning and QST. This is something that we've been talking about internally. If we can build out some data sets and potentially predict some of the key inputs that are required to inform some of the DILIsym and or RENAsym model predictions, this may allow us to utilize this kind of technology earlier in discovery, and maybe even tie it into some of the drug design work that we've been focused on with the ADMET Predictor and AIDD platform. Another is the next generation platforms, and there are whispers that new versions of software for ADMET Predictor, GastroPlus, Monolix, DILIsym, RENAsym may all be available sometime in 2021. So hopefully we'll have a lot of information to share in terms of how efficient some activities have become within these new platforms, and then also some of the new science and functionality that's been added as well. Arlene or Jonathan, I don't have the Excel events platform open. I don't know if anybody else has submitted some ideas.
I don't see anything in the Q&A or chat, but we will be sending out a post-survey conference, so check your email for that. But if you have any suggestions or would like to present next year, feel free to email me and we'll get the list started. Again, John, I would also like to thank Jasmine, Victor, Pari, and Dewash, instrumental in making this happen, along with all the moderators, admins, and speakers. What I heard the most about was just coming together, putting it all together, the big picture. And it reminded me of a quote about making your life a masterpiece. Imagine no limitations on what you can be, women, men, girls, boys in science, or what you can do. And now that we've heard the ascent of MIDD through now the future predictions, it's looking good for 2022. And with that, we're going to close out this year's conference. Visit our website, www.simulations-plus.com, and visit our resource center where we'll have all the replays available. Thank you everyone for attending.